A comment on the judgment in Jimmy Lai's case.
以下係香港大律師公會前主席夏博義以英文 podcast 嘅形式就黎智英案判詞作出評論。佢反駁判詞提及西方價值嘅講法，指出人權屬於普世價值，中國曾經深度參與建構。我哋一齊聽下佢點講。
I have just finished reading the extremely long judgment in the trial of Jimmy Lai Chi-ying. It is not my intention today to comment on the trial as a whole. This would be premature, as sentence has not yet been pronounced, and there remains the possibility of an appeal. However, I do want to comment on one phrase used in the judgment. At paragraph 1754, the judgment states that, quote, D1, that is, Jimmy Lai, affiliated himself with Western values, unquote. That statement cannot be allowed to pass unchallenged because there is no such thing as Western values. The expression Western values is not an objective statement, but is propaganda in support of the idea that human rights, such as freedom of speech, democracy, and the rule of law, are Western cultural constructs which are not applicable to China or to some other East Asian countries. The idea has been promoted, for example, by some Singaporean scholars. In this podcast, I am going to explain why this idea is false. The countries of the western part of the globe, like those of the eastern part of the globe, are highly diverse. In many cases, they are as different from each other as they are from China. Western countries have no monopoly on democracy, and East Asian countries have no monopoly on authoritarian government. Hitler, Mussolini, and Franco were Westerners, as is Nicolas Maduro, until recently the dictator of Venezuela. Many Asian countries are democracies today. Secondly, rights such as freedom of speech, democracy, and the rule of law are actually universal human rights. They were obtained in many countries, Western and Eastern, only after intense conflict and struggle, including war. And countries where those rights are observed, whether Western or Eastern, are always at risk of losing them. As President Thomas Jefferson of the United States is believed to have said, "The price of liberty is eternal vigilance." After World War II, and the grotesque horrors inflicted on millions of people in that war by both Germany and Japan, the victorious Allies, including China, were determined to create a world where such things could not happen again. They did not succeed in preventing future war and atrocities. However, they did succeed in creating a fundamentally important and widely accepted document which set a benchmark of the human rights to which every person is entitled as a human being, and against which the actions of governments around the world can be measured. That document is the United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights was adopted by the United Nations in 1948 after drafting conferences held at Lake Success in New York State and in Geneva. It was adopted by every member country of the United Nations except Saudi Arabia, which rejected its protection of the rights of women. The UN member countries which adopted the Universal Declaration of Human Rights included China. What is not so widely known is that China played a key part in the drafting of the Universal Declaration, and that it was enacted in the form it takes because of Chinese input. In theory, every national delegate to the drafting conferences was entitled to contribute to the drafting of the Universal Declaration. But in reality, there were just 4 delegates who did almost all the work. These 4 were Eleanor Roosevelt, the widow of American President Franklin Roosevelt, who was the United States delegate, René Cassin, former chief legal advisor to General de Gaulle, the leader of the Free French in World War II, who was the French delegate, Charles Malik, the Lebanese delegate, and Chang Peng Chun, rector of Tianjin University, who was the Chinese delegate. All 4 of these delegates were broadly agreed on the rights which should be included in the Universal Declaration. Their different backgrounds did not create serious difficulties in that respect. However, one very important disagreement between them did emerge. Charles Malik was a very religious Catholic. He proposed a draft of the Declaration which linked all the rights in it to God. He wanted the Declaration to refer to those rights as gifts of God to every human being. This approach would not necessarily have been objectionable to Eleanor Roosevelt, who was a Protestant, or to René Cassin, who had been raised as a Jew. However, Chang Peng Chun refused to accept this approach. He told the other delegates that linking the rights to God, as proposed by Charles Malik, was not part of the Chinese tradition and was not acceptable if the declaration was to be genuinely universal and accepted by all the peoples of the world. After weeks of furious argument, the delegates sided with Chang Peng Chun and against Charles Malik. As a result, the Universal Declaration, in the form in which it exists, has no reference at all to God. That important feature is entirely due to the Chinese input. Chang Peng Chun was a great scholar. He had been China's ambassador to Turkey, and among other expertise, he was highly knowledgeable about Islam and Islamic traditions. He is rarely referred to by the Chinese Communist Party and its supporters, as his values and beliefs were diametrically opposed to theirs. He has effectively been written out of history because his existence and his contributions run counter to current Chinese government propaganda. So the values in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights not only are not Western values, they reflect the views of the scholar who represented China at the United Nations at the time. In that sense, it can be said that every one of the rights in the Universal Declaration is a Chinese right. But the Chinese contribution to human rights goes even deeper, to the very heart of the development of the idea of human rights. The idea that human beings have rights is closely linked in its development to the ideas of the European Enlightenment of the 18th century, which was centered on the idea that human reason should be the guiding principle in human affairs. One of the most influential rational thinkers in the early part of the European Enlightenment was a German, Gottfried Leibniz. Leibniz was a polymath who made contributions to scholarship in many areas. One notable contribution was his study of Chinese philosophy. The first translation of the works of Confucius, Kongfuzi, out of Chinese was published in Latin in Paris in 1687 and was read by Leibniz shortly afterwards. Leibniz was sufficiently influenced by Confucius that he declared his support for Chinese ethics as coinciding with his own. Confucius was also read by an even more influential thinker of the Enlightenment, a Frenchman, François Arouet, commonly known by his pen name of Voltaire. Voltaire had not only read Confucius, he had also read Mencius, Mingzi, first published in Europe in 1711, and some of Voltaire's most important views are similar to those of Mencius and are very likely to have been influenced by them. Both Voltaire and Mencius believed that people are entitled to be ruled by a just ruler, and that a ruler who is not just should be overthrown. This influential doctrine contributed in due course to the French Revolution of 1789. Chinese ideas about ethics and human rights therefore contributed directly to the ideas of the European Enlightenment, which in turn led to the emergence of the idea of human rights. So China contributed to the development of human rights values both in the 18th century and in the 20th century. So I hope I have shown how the idea that there are such things as Western values is untrue. I share Jimmy Lai's passion for freedom of speech, democracy, and the rule of law. I do so because I believe these are universal values which should be respected in every country.
以上係香港大律師公會前主席夏博義以英文 podcast 嘅形式就黎智英案判詞作出評論。大家可以到綠豆網頁瀏覽更多破土專欄文章。